In stories of heroes and monsters, there are those who become known throughout the world as legendary warriors, and the world of RWBY is certainly no different. In the past, there were those such as Maria Calavera, the Grim Reaper, known throughout the world of Remnant for her exploits. And in the current generation, there are those such as Pyrrha Nikos, considered world-class fighters. And although Pyrrha never got to see her graduation to become a full-fledged huntress, she will certainly be remembered for generations to come. Both of these huntresses are easily considered legendary in their own rights, but how exactly would they compare against one another in battle? Well, that's exactly what we're going to find out today in the next exhibition match of the Phoenix Festival Tournament. These two legendary warriors are going to face off 1v1 using Amity Coliseum as the stage, fighting to a full aura break with no possibilities of a ring out. I'll take a look at their weapons, their semblances, and their fighting styles to essentially determine who would end up winning, or who is more likely to win. I'll give my opinions on how I think this battle will go, but ultimately it will be up to all of you to decide in the comments below who you think will end up winning. Make sure to comment who you think it would be and give a brief explanation as to why, whether it's semblance advantage, weapon advantage, experience, fighting style, etc., what factors would play in, and then that will overall determine the winner, and it will be determined a week from now when the next exhibition match goes up. That's when the results will be announced. And on that note, we need to talk about last week's fight between Tyrion Callows and Talk the Croc. In that video, I said that Talk would actually come out the winner because of her 60-second invulnerability. Tyrion's 5 points of contact don't really matter. With Talk being such a savage fighter, not having to worry about defense, Tyrion wouldn't really have an option to activate his semblance to get through Talk's aura, and she would be able to just overwhelm him and eventually break his aura before that 60 seconds was up. However, the comment section pretty much unanimously disagreed. It was about, I'd say, 75 to 25 in favor of Tyrion. A lot of people thought that Tyrion would be able to hold back, not give in to his urges in battle, and be able to wear Talk down, or at least survive the 60 seconds, so that he wouldn't be taken over and would win that fight, because after Talk's semblance is up, her aura breaks anyways, and therefore Tyrion would just end up winning. So in that fight, Tyrion is declared the winner. Now, before we get into analyzing today's combatants, I want to remind everyone that the best fights in RWBY poll is currently going on until midnight on May 15th. Link in the description below. Go there and vote for your top 5 fights in the RWBY series. Only vote for 5, don't vote for any more than that, and don't vote multiple times because your vote will be disqualified. The results will be tallied and put up in video format on this channel the following weekend. But with that being said, let's get into analyzing Maria Calavera and Pyrrha Nikos. Let's start with Pyrrha Nikos, as she is a character very near and dear to many of our hearts, and honestly probably one of the trickiest opponents that anyone will come up against in the Phoenix Festival Tournament, and that is because of her semblance, which is polarity. Pyrrha has control over magnetism, so any metal object that has magnetic properties, Pyrrha can manipulate at will. And considering this is a tournament of huntsmen and huntresses, all of which tend to wield metallic weapons or also have metallic armor, that gives Pyrrha a lot of objects to work with. So if someone is wearing armor, she can essentially ragdoll them, like she did with Jean a couple times, actually, in the RWBY series, and if they're wielding metallic weapons that are also magnetic, she can just simply disarm them. Now, we don't know the metal that most opponents' weapons are made out of, but I'm gonna guess that most of them, if not all of them, have some sort of magnetic properties. Considering Jean's armor does and Jean's sword, I'm going to assume that that's a typical metal that most weapons are made out of, etc. So Pyrrha has a lot of opportunity to use her semblance and is going to make it pretty far in the tournament, depending on her opponents, simply because of that. And Maria is going to be no different, because her weapons, life and death, although they have wooden shafts, the Kama blades themselves are metallic, and Pyrrha could probably still manipulate at will. So she's a tough opponent for anyone to come up against, but not only because of her semblance, as that is only one tool in Pyrrha's arsenal. She's an extremely skilled warrior in her own right, able to handle multiple opponents in combat and analyze the situation very quickly with very fast reflexes of her own. Look no further than her fight between herself and Team Cardinal for a good sense of what Pyrrha is capable of. She was able to 1v4 the entirety of this team and come out without taking a single hit, as far as it seems. And although it kind of makes Cardinal look like pushovers, they are by no means weak. Each member of Team Cardinal made it to Beacon Academy on their own skill. They are a good team. They are a skilled team, although Cardin is a questionable leader with his morals and the way he treats some of his teammates sometimes. They are still a skilled team, and Pyrrha was able to take all of them on by herself. That just is a testament to Pyrrha's skill, her reflexes, and her ability when it comes to combat. And her weapon is also a reflection of this. Milo and Akuo, her shield and her sword can take multiple different forms. It has a Xiphos blade as well as can become a spear and a rifle, and not to mention, Pyrrha also has extreme accuracy when firing this as a weapon. She was able to spear Jean's hood back in Volume 1 from a fair distance away. That is no small feat, to adjust for the recoil of the rifle shot that launched the spear forward, as well as having perfect form to have that much aim. Pyrrha's skill cannot be underestimated, and she is an extremely tricky opponent, able to shift between the forms of her weapons, extend the spear outwards, and grapple with her opponents. Very close combat, and makes it so difficult for anyone to keep up with Pyrrha, to know what she's capable of next. Like, she is an extremely, extremely skilled fighter. But her opponent, Maria Calavera, the Grim Reaper, is just as much skilled, if not more so. Because Maria has been known throughout the world as the Grim Reaper, and we only saw her fighting capabilities in a single episode, in which she fought Talk and did end up losing, getting blinded, but the skill she displayed in that fight was incredible. She too went up against 4 opponents and was able to easily decimate 3 of them, and was just having a lot of trouble with Talk because, well, she couldn't really damage Talk for those 60 seconds because Talk was invulnerable, and so didn't have to worry about defense, which threw Maria off, and eventually she was blinded, though she still did end up winning that fight because of Talk's arrogance. But still, Maria was able to wield her weapon's life and death with extreme precision. Not to mention that Maria has an incredible amount of physical strength herself. If you rewatch the fight between her and the Nevermore, she used her life and death, the gravity dust crystals that are embedded in it, to manipulate this giant Nevermore's momentum through the air. Her commas, life and death, with their gravity crystals, can be activated through aura or by clicking a button on the sides to draw them together. The gravity dust has an attraction force between them, so Maria can throw her scythe, stick it into the ground, stick it into something else, and draw them together. If she is disarmed of one of her scythes, she can activate the gravity dust in the one she's still holding, draw the other one back to her. So it's extremely difficult to disarm Maria, and she uses this to such advantage in her fights. As I mentioned, immense physical strength. She was able to throw one of the commas into the stone, stab one of them into the Nevermore, activate it, and draw the Nevermore to the ground. This is a very impressive feat because Maria had to hold on to this scythe, this comma, while it was drawing enough force to pull this Nevermore to the ground. Sure, she had stabbed the scythe into the Nevermore, but it would have been real easy for the scythe to just, or the comma to just rip out of the Nevermore and be drawn to it with that much force. Maria held on, and by doing so, dragged this Nevermore to the ground. Maria has an immense amount of strength, and on top of that, she also has the best reflexes out of anyone in the RWBY series. And this is, of course, because of her semblance preflexes, which is, in and of itself, just essentially means pre-reflexes. Her reflexes activate or sense things earlier than other people's do. In the fight that she had between Talk and herself, and the other people who were there along with her, she was able to sense the exact trajectory of bullets that were being fired from behind herself. So she's able to block these bullets with her kama and sense the directionality of opponents' movements, etc., though things can still take her by surprise. For example, Talk biting through her kama, something that she wasn't able to sense coming, as, well, you know, reflexes, reacting to someone's teeth being shown and then biting that close distance, probably not the greatest reaction time, but Maria still has an incredible amount of reflexes, more so than Pyrrha has, I would argue, simply because of her semblance and the skill that she's displayed in combat. Although it wasn't really displayed as much as I think it could have been in that fight, it was still displayed to a high degree, and just based on the fact that Maria still has a lot of this dexterity, agility, etc., as, you know, she was able to survive a train crash unscathed as a little old woman, not to mention jumping into a well, being unscathed on top of that, and also running to keep up with Team RWBY as they were all fleeing from the apathy, Maria, even in her old age, still has these capabilities. And I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that they have dulled at least somewhat with age, that she would have been faster, stronger, and more agile is the right word. Lost my thoughts there for a second, but more agile in her prime than she is right now. Therefore, Maria's abilities cannot be underestimated, even though we only saw her in a single fight. So how exactly would a fight between these two actually go? Well, both of them, extremely skilled as they are, would try to gauge their opponent's capabilities. Not really trying their hardest at battle or going for a decisive strike right away, but trying to find out where the opponent's weaknesses are and where their openings would be. Look at Pyrrha versus Mercury. Pyrrha didn't go for a decisive strike until after gauging what Mercury was capable of and actually touching his boots to be able to manipulate them with her semblance, which is an important factor. Pyrrha will actually have to touch the kamas, the blades of Maria's life and death to be able to manipulate them, which in and of itself is a bit more dangerous than blocking Mercury's boots, as these kamas are edged weapons, bladed, and could deal some damage to Pyrrha's aura. As this fight went on, though, Pyrrha might try to start off by firing a few shots from a rifle and find out early on that Maria has incredible reflexes, able to dodge these bullets even as Maria is charging in to get closer to Pyrrha. And once it came to a flurry of blows, it would be very close, actually. Both of them are dual-wielding, Maria with her two kamas of life and death, and Pyrrha with Milo and Akuo, her sword and shield. So they would be able to block and dodge most of each other's attacks, and Pyrrha could also throw her shield out as an attack when Maria was charging in, and then manipulate it with her semblance to pull it back and, you know, have it spin around the room and attack that way, but Maria would easily be able to dodge, and Pyrrha would have it more useful, having it wielded by herself rather than her semblance. There's one thing about Pyrrha's semblance that makes it a little bit tricky, or at least gives an opening for opponents. She cannot use her semblance, at least from what I've seen in the RWBY series and the fights that I've analyzed, while she's wielding her weapons at the same time. She needs an open palm and focus on the direction in which she is manipulating the objects with her polarity. When she manipulates Mercury's boots, she has it open hand and is manipulating it. When she's manipulating the gears that end up dealing a pretty heavy attack against Cinder, she has both of her hands open and is very focused on everything that's happening. Against Penny, she pushed both of her open hands outwards to send essentially a magnetic force that forced all the metallic objects backwards. She has to have an open palm to be able to manipulate things. And to manipulate things in two separate directions, I'd think that she would have to have both of her palms open. As when she's only been used one palm open at a time, she's only been able to manipulate single objects, whether it's her sword individually or her shield individually or Jean's shield or armor, etc. It seems the larger the objects or the increased number of objects, Pyrrha needs two hands and more focus to be able to do so, which puts her at a little bit of disadvantage when trying to use her semblance against Maria, because she'll have to first touch both of Maria's kamas to be able to manipulate both of them, and then also have a chance to be open-palmed to actually disarm Maria. Now, in this fight, Pyrrha would easily have the chance to be able to lay at least a finger or something on Maria's kama when she was able to block with Milo and Akuo, etc. Not to mention, she could also use the spear functionality to at least get a little bit of distance from Maria. Maria could combine her life and death into the dual-bladed staff that it could be and attack that way. However, I think Maria would probably try to keep them both separate, especially after Pyrrha started trying to manipulate her weapons with polarity. Because once Pyrrha is able to touch life and death, she could try to disarm Maria, sending one scythe flying out of the way and possibly, most likely, being pretty shocked when all of a sudden life and death comes flying back at her due to the gravity dust. Maria would have no real need to activate that up until that point, though there is one thing that Maria might be capable of, and that is throwing the weapon out past her opponents, or she would be capable of, throwing her weapon out past her opponents and using life and death to retract it and attack from behind them. That would be a good thing that she could use to gain a surprise advantage on her opponents. Pyrrha, with her reflexes, would be able to react to this if she could see that and would be aware of an opponent throwing their weapons, because she would be able to tell that Maria is very skilled, and her throwing one of her weapons away would seem like an odd thing to do. Pyrrha would definitely be aware of that. But every time Maria or Pyrrha tried to pull Maria's weapons away, she could just activate the gravity dust functions of life and death to draw it backwards. Now, sure, Pyrrha could try to send both of her weapons flying in different directions, and thus Maria wouldn't be able to use the gravity dust to draw them back together. But as I said, to do that, Pyrrha would need to be essentially unarmed or open-handed. I would argue that while wielding her shield, she could still be open-handed and manipulate the weapons on the metallic objects in different directions, but it's still very dangerous and could give Maria an opening. Pyrrha is definitely capable of doing so. However, because of the strength that Maria has, she could let go of one scythe and keep hold of the other and just let it drag her. Now, Pyrrha could raise her up into the air and try to slam her into the ground that way, but at that point, Maria could probably just let go and try to attack Pyrrha just hand-to-hand combat, because Maria is very skilled at that too. We haven't seen as much of her hand-to-hand capabilities, because we didn't really get much of a chance to in the fight against Talk, but she's very skilled with that. She still dealt a couple kicks, etc. to Talk, other opponents. This would be a very tricky fight for Pyrrha to win. Even if she was manipulating Maria's life and death, Maria could still take advantage of the situation. If Pyrrha was able to disarm Maria of both of them, she would have the advantage, but overall, I see Maria having more of an advantage over Pyrrha, simply because one weapon's disarmed, Maria can keep attacking and not have to worry, draw the other weapon back, and rearm herself a lot quicker than most other opponents, even if life and death is tossed across Amity Coliseum, etc. Now, if biomes were in play, this might go a little bit differently. Maria, I think, would win if there are no biomes, but with biomes, it's possible that Pyrrha could send life and death out and get it snagged on a tree or in some other part of the biome and make it so Maria could be disarmed and would actually have to physically go get her weapon. At which point, Pyrrha would be able to take the advantage and I think would be able to win. It all depends on how these opponents would wield their weapons and their semblances. Maria would be extremely capable at dodging and finding an opponent's openings, even though Pyrrha is very analytical when it comes to battle, finding opponents' openings as well. Maria, with her preflexes, would be able to see where Pyrrha's strikes are coming, be able to dodge them a little bit easier, react a little bit quicker than Pyrrha is used to fighting, and that Pyrrha is able to react herself. So even in biomes, it would be more of an even fight, but overall, without biomes, I think Maria would have the advantage, and it would be more even with biomes in play, and I could see it kind of 50-50 either way. These are two extremely skilled huntresses who I would love to see actually face each other on screen, though unfortunately that's never going to happen, but we may still get more of Maria actually fighting if she can have her own Yoda moment when it comes to Volume 8 and fighting against Salem, the person who sent someone to blind her in the first place, when Salem finds out that, oh, you were supposed to have died decades ago. Well, now I'm going to try to finish the job, and Maria might be able to do some other acrobatics and other things there. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Now, for the next fight in the Phoenix Festival tournament, we are going to have Roman Torchwick fighting against Mercury Black, two characters who haven't displayed their semblances in the RWBY series, but are very skilled in their own right. And don't count Roman out very quickly, because Mercury, although he's trained as an assassin for years, Roman has been in the underground and has fought against multiple opponents at the same time as well. Look no further than Volume 1 and the fight at the docks, where Roman fought against both Blake and Sun. He was able to hold his own quite well. So Roman is definitely very capable when it comes to fighting, and is definitely not opposed to fighting dirty, using tricks, etc. So this is a fight that I'm going to be looking forward to, and hopefully you guys will be as well. Let me know who you think in the comments below will end up winning the fight between Maria and Pyrrha, and what factors will play a role. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to subscribe, join the Guild of the Eternal Flame, tweet me at Phoenix Knight 7, join our Discord, and I'll see you guys in the next video.